Today we're going to create this dark brown into pink color block. So you'll get to see us lighten the hair, we'll put on the pink, and then we'll do a little bit of some cutting. I'm seeing a lot of long hairstyles just having a nice bang right now. So since we're in the bang moment, I'll show you how to get that really easily. Let's get started. So the first thing to color block will be the bangs. So you could just separate the bang section first. This will be your traditional bang section, so pretty much to the corner of the eyes. Now that we've got the bang section, we'll add some hair from the sides. So technically you're creating a triangle, and this creates dimension in hair color. So you can actually use that tip anytime you're color blocking. Just think about like how much color you want in an area of the head, and where you want less color, put the narrow part of the triangle there, and where you want more color to show, make that the widest part of your triangle. We're just gonna begin color blocking. The key is making sure that you've really saturated the section though, so you can spread the hair apart by doing crisscross motions with your brush. And then especially on longer hair, something I like to do is I'll lift that hair up. We'll use some of the lightener on the foil as glue, and that'll allow us to extend the foil. Now the easier option is if you have longer foils available, you can always just start by using longer foils and then you won't have to do that little trick. But in a pinch, this really helps, especially if you only have standard size foils. Now, instead of placing a foil on top, we're gonna take our next section of hair and just lay it right on top of the previous section. So now what we're doing is we're just allowing the previous section to act as a little kind of saturation underneath to really make sure all of the hair is coated and will lighten up well. This will also improve the speed of your application because you're not laying another foil down upon every single section that you're coloring. If you want, you can always feather the top of the section just to make sure there's no like harsh line of lightener right there. Now that I'm starting to get past the edge of the foil, I am gonna lay one on top to continue working our way up the section. You can always charge that foil first if you'd like. Just place some lightener directly on top of the foil and then lay your subsection down so that way you have good saturation from the start. Once the entire subsection is covered, you can place a foil on top, and then I'm just going to fold the foil to match the parting. That's simple. First section's done. So my biggest tip to help you if you have slow speed is to up the volume of your developer as you work each subsection. So that could look like every time you mix a new bowl of lightener, you mix it with a slightly higher volume developer. Let's say you start out with 10 volume developer as your first bowl of lightener. The next time you go back, you can mix 20 and 10 to create a 15 volume. Then you'll use that bowl up. The next time you can go back and create full 20 volume developer with your lightener. So you can be really strategic with the strength of the lightener you're using, and it can help you with speed, and it can also help you maintain the integrity of the hair. Remember, once you're done applying, place your foil on top, then use the tail of the comb to just fold that foil to match up with the partings. Then just make sure to cover the ends. But as you're folding the foil, you just want to make sure you're not folding the lightener inside the foil, because that'll move the product and it could affect the application and maybe change the result. Now we're onto the bangs, and so we're just gonna do the same thing. So really saturate that hair, coat it in lightener so that it's gonna lift super beautifully into a light blonde. The last step is to color the tips of the hair. So the first thing you wanna do is kind of just shake out the tips. If you notice, all of those short little layers are popping out, so you already know that you're not gonna have to color those because they're not gonna reach the very tips of the hair. So just keep shaking the hair until all those layers fall out, and then you should be left with just a small section of hair that's gonna be where you put the tip color on. Now, once this is sectioned out, just split it in half and start coloring the tips. What you wanna do is you wanna get that hair out of its natural falling position. So pull it to the side or all the way to the front, so that way it's just not sitting where it's gonna live naturally. And then just start applying lightener to the very tips. You can still use the board if you'd like, just for stability, and then just layer lightener onto the tips. And all you gotta do is cover it up and seal the corners. And now we can move on to the other side. Goal is not to go any higher than the first side. So we'll grab a subsection, got our foil on the board, and then we're just doing tips. Part of why I liked subsectioning it out just by shaking the hair also is because it's not gonna be as precise of a sectioning. So that's gonna lend itself to making the tips feel more organic as they fall back into place. And that's it for the color application. Once it's processed to yellow, we'll rinse it off and dry it so you can see what it looks like before we do the color melt. And then we'll apply the dark brown and the pink. So here's the result of the color blocking placement. As you can see, we have the blonde and the bangs going into those pieces on the side, and it all sits underneath the dark color. For the very tips, we've maintained all of that depth and then just lightened up the bottom so that the pink can grab onto those lightened ends. This placement's actually really cute as is. Even if like you're starting out as a ginger and you just want to add some light to the hair, kind of gives a cute color. So now we'll color melt. We're going to just melt the dark brown color into the pink in the pre-lightened areas, and then we'll cover up the rest of the hair with the dark brown so it has that kind of fun pop of color in the front, moving on into the dark color in the back. So let's go. Here's where things got a little tricky. I applied a darker color and melted it into the lighter sections. And if we were already starting with dark hair, this wouldn't have been necessary, but because I wanted a deeper color on top of the ginger base, I had to add the hair color after lightening. Then when I rinsed everything out, the darker color bled into the blonde and toned it a lot more than I planned, so it made everything look a little bit darker. So you can see that all of that light blonde we created kind of took on this more muted shade. That was not intentional, so this kind of like ruins the brightness that we could potentially get. I think where I went wrong is that I washed it all together instead of carefully washing out the dark before washing out all of the light color. So that was my bad for not being careful. I did just want to make sure I showed this to you though, because this could happen when you are washing out dark color into light hair, but it's still going to look really good. We're going to apply the pink over top to get that final color block look, and then we'll get into the haircut. First, you'll section out your standard triangle for a bang. The thing is, if you cut this entire section into a bang, it'll end up looking too thick. So you've seen a lot of those kind of hair fail videos. It's because they've added too much hair into that bang section. What I would suggest then is to take a smaller triangle section from that bang and make that triangle only as wide as the pupils of the eye. So it's almost like taking another small triangle that just goes about halfway in from the first triangle. This is going to leave you with 2 outer pieces and 1 center piece. You can just take that section and condense it towards the center. And then we're going to cut these bangs to about the bridge of the nose. Now that we've got the short bangs cut, we're going to comb the longer pieces to the outside of the face. And I'm going to cut these to about the jaw. Now, if you want to soften out this fringe so it has a nice kind of framing of the face, what you can do is you can pull that hair slightly forward, and you see where the length of that bang ends. From that point, just cut a diagonal line. It'll be a really steep diagonal, so you're not really cutting that much, but it's just going to soften out the corner. Can you see there's this small little piece here that wants to live in the center? So if it keeps falling back in the center, it probably lives there naturally, so I'm just going to add that in. So if you do want to add layers to the hair, I would recommend keeping the elevation low and make sure that they don't start any shorter than the collarbone. And you can just do them softly by half closing your shear as you work from the shortest layer to the length. So just adding a little bit of angling, but not too much. You can comb sections from the back to the front if you want to continue blending it together. But again, just be sure that you're not cutting too much hair. It's just really creating some short to long movement. And I'm really not trying to cut any of the ends because remember, we just applied the color to the tips, so we don't want to cut any of that color off. Just keep the hair at a low elevation and slightly cut some soft layers in the front. Really not a lot. You're just combining sections from the back into your first section. So we would call this a stationary guideline, and just follow the guideline that is your front face framing, pulling those sections to the face framing and just matching everything up. So we're all finished with the haircut. We're gonna go through and dry the hair, and then once it's dry, we can texturize it to customize the ends. The first product I'm using is the Canva Platinum Blow Dry Spray. So this is a heat protection I use on pretty much everything, mainly when I'm blow drying. but it speeds up the blow dry process and then protects your color from fading while you're drying the hair. Next, I'm gonna add mousse, and this is because we're gonna add waves at the very end. So the mousse is going to give the hair a little bit of starch so that the waves will hold and we won't just be like putting heat on the hair and then not getting any results. So blow dry the roots from side to side just to cancel out any of the natural growth patterns. And this will help make your bangs lay a lot flatter in the front. So watch really quick as we brush this out. Look how soft that root flow is in the front now. So I just think we want to soften out that angle. Better. You can just soften out the bang by pulling it up and then cutting a little bit of texture inside. Don't do it too much, but just enough to take out some of the weight. The main goal is just to make it less hair in front of the eyes and make it feel a lot lighter. So you don't have to do it too much because you still want to have bangs, but just kind of enough that it takes away the thickness. Now, I was going to create a wave with the triple barrel iron, but I decided to go with a flat iron. First step is to add a heat protecting hairspray. This is the Kenra Color Maintenance Thermal Spray. So this is going to give heat protection, but it'll also provide hold. Whenever you're doing this kind of iron work where you're shaping the hair, you do want to have some sort of a spray in there so that it holds the style. Now the key is to keep the root at its natural elevation, so pretty low. And then from that point, roll the iron under, pull down and roll the iron up. Keep pulling down, roll the iron under, pull down, roll the iron up. Keep working your way down, and at the very end, just try to keep the ends more straight. So see how you get kind of this S-wave finish? And that's what you're looking for. So you want to be able to see that kind of like S pattern going on in the wave. So let's do another one. We're going to take another section on top. Keep in mind, the more sections you take, the more wavy it's going to look once you comb everything out. So if you want something that's a little bit more subdued, you can take larger sections. If there are small pieces that you want to save till later, you definitely can. So I'm going to leave some of those pieces out. And then remember, root at low elevation, and then just pull down as you roll the iron back and forth. If you pull the hair up, you're going to pull some of the hair out of where it lives as it's cooling down, and that's going to affect the ridges of the wave. So that's why maintaining the same elevation as you're doing the wave is really important to keep it looking smooth. And let's just do this entire top section one. So remember, spray. You can definitely spray both sides to get more saturation. Comb the hair and let it fall naturally, and then just add waves. So you're really going up, down, up, down. Look, from that view, you can really see the S pattern. So let's just try to blend that in. Oh, it's cute. Great. And look, if you add in the hair from the back, you just have this nice kind of like boho wave look going on. So it was fun. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know how you would avoid getting the dark hair color on that blonde earlier. I know it's going to be helpful for me to get these tips, and then it'll also be helpful for everyone watching. So if you do know how to rinse colors out safely without contaminating each other, leave a comment below on how to do that. And also just let me know what other hairstyles you want to see. This one I got inspired by Megan from Cat's Eye. She has this kind of pink color block that's rooted at the top, similar to what we did. So that was my inspiration this time, but I know some of you have been asking for the Square Enix haircut. So I might do that one next. And one last thing, if you are interested in learning this haircut with the layers specifically, I do have the hush cut video as well as a butterfly cut video, which will show you how to get layers really similar to this. So make sure to go watch those.